The creepiest discoveries made by archaeologists are increasingly intersecting with space. Scientists discovered something they aren't eager to share. And Elon Musk, meanwhile, is preparing 100,000 people for life on Mars. Melted walls of ancient cities, metal in layers where it shouldn't be, and objects that reflect light like mirrors. All of this is linked to extraterrestrial intervention. Real facts, recent discoveries, and the colonization plan, all in one video. Be sure to watch it until the end. Hello, my friend, you're on the Kurtop channel. A rocket versus a mirror. The video that was shown in the United States Congress lasts only a few seconds. A Hellfire missile, the usual drone weapon, heads toward a shiny metallic object over the sea near Yemen's coast. An explosion flashes, then nothing. The strike rebounds as if off a mirror. No fire or damage, just a brief shake and the operator's surprised voice. This isn't footage from a science fiction movie, but official video provided by the Committee for the Oversight of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. For the military, anything that isn't classified must be explained, but here, there's no explanation. The object doesn't look like a drone, doesn't behave like a missile, doesn't leave a plasma trail, and reflects energy as if it has its own magnetic field. Online, it's already being called the Yemeni mirror, a body capable of absorbing a strike. Congress openly states this isn't a United States test weapon or a confirmed enemy object. This is a rare time when an official organization reveals something it can't explain. And what do you think? Could it have been a new American weapon or a unique military object capable of deflecting enemy missiles? How does a mirror reflect light? A real alien was recorded. It appeared suddenly. The third interstellar visitor, 3I Atlas, flew through the solar system. It's not a comet, asteroid, or something for a school textbook. Astronomers quickly noticed something odd. The object emits its own light instead of reflecting sunlight. Such behavior defies normal physics. A dust cloud surrounds the object, but calculations show something dense and geometrically regular inside. Mathematician Eric Ketta and astrophysicist Avi Loeb, who previously suggested Oumuamua might be an artificial probe. They raise the uncomfortable question again. If it's not a comet and not a fragment of a star, then what is it? Their model showed that the observed illumination is best explained by an internal energy source. 3I Atlas orbits between Mars and Jupiter, 3.5 times farther from the Sun than Earth, yet remains visible. As it approaches the star, its surface color shifts as if reacting. Telescope. James Webb is already observing it, and rumors say the atmospheric data has made scientists rethink their observation protocols. If it's a piece of a star, it should have cooled down millions of years ago. If it's a ship, it doesn't resemble any technology we know. While official reports are delayed for revision, an object still lingers in the sky, acting as if it's alive and controlled. For the first time in history, officials from many countries around the world are not saying it's an optical illusion. Everyone is simply waiting, spending millions of dollars on unidentified flying object observations. In the south of England, in the mists of Norfolk, there is an old Royal Air Force base. Once, Soviet bombers were monitored from here, and now it is home to a man who has declared war on the sky, millionaire William Sachiti. He bought the entire complex along with the huge Type 84 radar from the Cold War era and turned the underground bunker into a headquarters for unidentified flying object hunting. Outside are overgrown antennas, concrete, and rust. Inside are server racks, monitors, and an AI system Sachiti calls radar. This program analyzes radio signals and notifies if something appears in the sky that doesn't look like an airplane or a satellite. Anyone can connect, buy a $25 antenna, and monitor the sky within 200 kilometers. More antennas expand the network. He says it's not about the money. Being the richest in the cemetery means nothing. Right here, beneath concrete layers, he built something that even governments fear, an open database of all strange signals over Britain. Ironically, it all started with a childhood story, when he, a schoolboy from Zimbabwe, saw a glowing spot over a field and heard other kids shouting that it was an unidentified flying object. Decades have passed, and now he has his own radar, his own station, and the right to watch the sky without any permissions. Disabilities, this is an idea. Richard Banderich speaks softly, as if aware his words are being recorded. A former engineer at National Aeronautics and Space Administration in Lockheed Martin, he spent decades designing propulsion systems and now claims that the Earth is littered with invisible devices of extraterrestrial origin. He says they've been here a long time and we're starting to find them. According to him, we're not talking about wreckage from ships, but about a network of tiny sensors, trillions of microscopic structures scattered across the planet. Some of them, he claims, are able to change shape and camouflage themselves to blend in with their surroundings. His team allegedly observed one such fragment under a microscope. A metal piece pulsated, as if aware of being watched. Banderich says he saw these objects dissolve into dust. It's worth trying to study them, but the analysis showed something that shouldn't be there. The isotopic composition doesn't match anything known on Earth. After publication, his access to materials was cut, the lab was moved to a private company, and the engineer now openly says these aren't our technologies. They're too ancient and advanced. According to him, the network works like a sensory observation system, not for attack, but for detecting life. A hidden network of antennas covers Earth. You can be skeptical about the engineer's words, but with every discovery that suggests artificial interference in the natural order of things, the line between the incredible and the entirely possible becomes thinner. Sometimes it feels like we are being studied with the same curiosity that we observe other worlds. The shape of the telescope matters. Astronomers often say that the size of the mirror is the limit of our vision. James Webb reached its limit. Its 6.5-meter hexagonal mirror is folded like an orchid, and it's already too big to launch anything larger into space. However, physicists from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute proposed changing the mirror's shape instead of increasing its size, designing a rectangular mirror as a long, narrow strip, 20 meters in length. It collects less light per unit of time, but with the same angular resolution as a circle that's 10 times larger in diameter. Such a telescope could be launched into space on a standard rocket without complex segments or breakage risk. The Habitable Worlds Observatory aims to view Earth-like planets up to 10 parsecs away, showing their atmospheres, clouds, and possibly oceans, not just as points. Models show that in 3 years of observations, such a rectangle could detect more than 20 potentially habitable worlds around stars similar to our Sun. There's something symbolic about that. To discover new worlds, humanity had to abandon the once ideal shape of the circle. Maybe life in the universe doesn't need to be symmetrical. Sometimes answers appear from a different angle. Water at Karlik. When the Transiting Exoplanets Survey Satellite Telescope transmitted the first data about the planet Toy 1, 1846b scientists expected to see yet another hot, lifeless sphere, a typical super-Earth orbiting a red dwarf. But with each new observation, it became clear this world didn't match the usual idea of Toy 1, 1846b. It's almost twice the size of Earth and 4 times heavier. It orbits its star in just 4 days so close that the surface temperature rises to 300 degrees. But even under such conditions, the instruments detected signals indicating something impossible. Traces of water aren't oceans as we know them, but are deep layers of liquid beneath a rocky crust or dense atmosphere. Scientists are careful in their wording, but the essence remains. Even in hell, water can exist. And if it can, then the scenario for its preservation on planets is infinitely broader than we thought. It's like finding pottery in a place where there shouldn't be any clay. Nature constantly breaks its own laws, and in this way, it is not symmetrical. This is an ancient system that has survived to a time when many of its neighbors have long since faded away. If there really is water there, it's older than all of human history. Perhaps in this insane heat, there are chemical traces of how water survives the death of planets, so that one day it can become their beginning again. Soon, the James Webb Telescope and future extremely large telescopes, which are being built right in the Atacama, will look there. The driest places on Earth are searching for water hundreds of light years away. The oldest galaxy. When researchers noticed a tiny glowing spot with record-breaking red emission in the James Webb data stream, they decided to check if it was an algorithm error, but the calculations were confirmed before them. It might be a galaxy born just 90 million years after the Big Bang. They named it Capitoro, after an Italian mountain, just as ancient and unmoving. If confirmed, the discovery will end many theories. According to standard models, the universe simply couldn't have produced such a massive Capitoro in such a short time. It shines too bright for its age and is estimated to have about 1 billion stars. It's like someone hit the evolution fast-forward button. Some scientists suggest that the observed signal is not a galaxy, but a nearby substellar object like a brown dwarf, but the spectrum doesn't match. Some believe we're witnessing a new intermediate life form between a star and a system, a primordial structure from which worlds eventually develop. If Capitoro really is a galaxy, then we're looking at the moment when darkness first retreated, at the birth of the first sources of light that began to disperse the primordial void. While scientists debate what this data reflects, one thing is clear: each new web image breaks old patterns more than it provides answers. The universe acts like it doesn't want to be understood. Jupiter's birthday. For a long time, Jupiter was considered the oldest planet in the solar system, but no one could say exactly how much older it is than Earth. Now we have the answer. Planetary scientists from Japan and Italy believe the giant formed just 1.8 million years after the solar system's creation. For cosmic scales, that's just a moment, but this moment determined the fate of all the other planets. The scientists used an unusual method, computer modeling of the behavior of hundreds of silicate microspheres that, years ago, floated in the dust cloud from which the planets were forming. These tiny particles hold traces of the earliest catastrophes, collisions, flares, and evaporations. By their age and composition, it is possible to reconstruct the rate at which Jupiter was born. Models indicate the giant appeared as the rest of the solar system began to condense. At that time, its mass was comparable to Mars, but its gravity was already working like a vacuum cleaner, pulling everything in around it. It was Jupiter that became the first force to change the balance of the young system. It pulled in gas, shuffled orbits, disrupted the formation of several potential planets, and possibly even saved Earth by taking millions of comet impacts. This reconstruction cast Jupiter as not just a neighbor, but a founder, the first sign of life in chaos, the center around which others formed. Ironically, the second largest and brightest object after the Sun resulted from what seemed like a childish experiment by the universe. Jupiter began as a Mars-sized embryo, quickly gained mass, and became the planet that shaped everything else. 4.5 billion years have passed since then, but even now, looking at it through a telescope, you can imagine how a planet was born from a hot cloud of gas, the first to learn how to be a giant. 100,000 people and millions of tons of resources. When Elon Musk discusses Mars, it sounds more like an engineering plan than a dream. Recently, he once again mentioned a number that made many people reconsider their idea of colonization. Building a sustainable community on the Red Planet will require at least 100,000 people, not just a dozen researchers. Musk says one landing isn't enough. The planet must be self-sufficient, producing food, energy, oxygen, and metals. The colony must endure, even if Earth goes silent. To achieve this, about 1 million tons of equipment and resources need to be delivered. Factories, reactors, domes, and recycling systems. It sounds crazy, but according to him, the Starship has already been designed for such a task. Each rocket will be able to carry up to 100 tons of cargo and launch every few days. Mars shouldn't be a backup airfield, says Musk. It should become a second home. Is it really a human project if the starting conditions resemble hard labor more than utopia? Viewed broadly, Musk is just describing history's natural course. Once ships sailed into the ocean, now they go into space. Perhaps these 100,000 will become a new type of humanity, born under a new sky where the sun is just the nearest star, not the center. Only space dries it out. If there's anywhere on Earth where you can feel the breath of another planet, it's the Atacama. A strip of land squeezed between the Andes and the coastal Cordillera hasn't seen rain for 400 years. The air here is so dry that metal rusts more slowly than a person ages. But it is this absolute lifelessness that has made the desert the main laboratory for space. In San Pedro de Atacama, the air smells of sulfur salt. Daytime heat raises sand to 40 degrees, while nighttime temperatures drop below zero. Silence in which even footsteps sound like gunshots. Everything here is made so you can look up at an altitude of over 4,000 meters, where the thin air rings like glass, and giant antennas are lined up in a row. ALMA is a megawatt, very large telescope. They capture light that has traveled to us for billions of years and break it down into the finest bands. As a researcher uncovering the universe's past, seeing these giant antennas feels like observing living beings listening to the cosmos, not just machines. Their aluminum ears catch starlight, the cold rustle of intergalactic dust and echoes of distant bursts. In Atacama, one is caught between two worlds, stone and space. At night, local guides sometimes turn off the headlights, revealing a black dome sky filled with millions of needle-like lights. People silently watch as the Milky Veil rises over the mountains. At this moment, it's clear that if you can hear the universe anywhere on Earth, it's here, where only goats graze. Cosmos. Fishing on Mars. Our understanding of Mars changes when viewing images of the Noches Terra region, revealing only dust and silence. Orbital spacecraft have found a network of ancient channels, over 15,000 kilometers of stone rivers. They stretch like scars or plates vanishing under sedimentary rock, telling a story millions of years old. These valleys are not dried up cracks, but real traces of water flow. Along them, sedimentary terraces have been preserved, exposed by erosion, and elongated ridges that resemble channels, petrified remnants of vanished streams. Everything suggests that there was once a climate here capable of supporting rain on the red planet. The very idea sounds almost heretical, but data from orbital spacecraft confirm that Mars's atmosphere was once dense and humid. Scientists call this era the Noachian, a time when the planet was blue, with rivers, lakes, and deltas. Everything now buried in dust once filled the valleys with life. Water didn't just flow briefly, it sculpted the landscape, leaving deposits still visible today. What we see now, the cold desert, rocks, and storms, is just the last scene of a long play. When Perseverance finds clay minerals or stones smoothed by a stream, it's digging in an ancient riverbed where life could have once existed. So it turns out, in the ancient times on Mars, you could have fished for melted fortresses. Ruins in Scotland's mountains continue to spark debate among archaeologists. At first, it seems like a typical Bronze or Iron Age fortification. Stone walls, dwelling remains, and campfire traces. But on closer inspection, the stones appear melted, with wall sections looking as if they've been through a furnace. The rocks fused together and turned into a single glassy monolith. This is not the result of a fire. Sandstone melts at temperatures above 1,000 degrees. To achieve this effect, you need to keep the fire burning for several days, creating an enclosed space where the heat doesn't escape. Someone built these fortresses and then intentionally burned them, making them solid blocks. 20th century experiments showed this effect can only be achieved through artificial control. Scientists Wally Stornicroft and Veer Gordon-Child repeated the experiment, burning a wall of stone slabs with wooden layers covered in clay. After 3 hours, the structure collapsed, but some stones fused together. Later, it became clear that the temperature had to remain stable. In other words, it was a technology, not an accident. Someone back in the times when metal wasn't yet in use already understood how to control heat. More than 200 similar fords where people melted stone were later found across northern Europe. No one knows why it happened at that particular time, but this strange knowledge of fire that binds instead of destroying feels too advanced for its time. As if it's not just ancient engineering, but a technology once passed down, the meaning of which we still can't unravel, since we've seen similar technology in ancient Egypt with the melted steps. The fire mineral on the eastern edge of the Martian Valles Marineris. The probe detected a strange shine, as if the dust had a thin glaze. When spectral analysis confirmed iron hydroxysulfate's presence, the scientists fell silent. This mineral can't form without water, oxygen, and heat over 100 degrees. That means when it appeared, Mars was still alive, breathing, and boiling. The discovery site is the Aramkaus region, where the landscape appears churned up by a giant drill. Underground ice layers were here, until something heated them enough to explode. The ice melted, water burst to the surface, and a crater lake formed, which existed until it evaporated, leaving behind salts. And this mysterious mineral is almost never found on Earth. It's too humid. It breaks down too quickly. The Martian desert became the perfect oven where minerals were baked like ceramics. Perhaps the last bursts of volcanism or the movement of hot subsurface water created conditions where water and fire came together. On the hydrox is the boundary of life. This mineral's formation temperature is self-explanatory. Mars stayed hot longer than once believed, cooling from within rather than being a dead world. Iron hydroxysulfate is not just a chemical rarity, but direct evidence that flows of heat and moisture persisted beneath the surface for a long time. And if there was ever liquid water deep underground, then microscopic life could have survived there as well. A living meteorite. In late August, a Panama resident named Kin uploaded a video that quickly went viral. In the footage, a small stone lies on scorched earth, with dark, shiny tentacle-like shapes oozing from its cracks. When touched, they burned leaves, and the stone seemed to breathe, emitting steam. Kin claims that he found it in a crater after a flash in the night sky. At first, it felt like science fiction, but Kin soon proved the object grew, especially in light. He kept it at home, then in a safe because it's calmer at night. Then it sleeps. He claimed that he sent samples to friends for analysis, but the results were never published. Scientists stayed quiet while people debated on social media. From an alien organism to the common fungus Antherus archer, also called the devil's fingers. It grows from the ground with a foul smell and looks similar in the dark, but many things don't add up. The shape is different. It's metallic, and its glow isn't typical for plants or fungi. Kin kept filming in the last video. The object was fully covered with growths, as if the stone had become living matter. The account was deleted, and only copies and mirrors of the videos remain. The story could be fake, but the speed at which such stories get millions of views suggests otherwise. Humanity needs a miracle not because it's real, but because it brings back the feeling that the cosmos can break into our everyday life at any moment. Petrified waves. The Curiosity rover has been roaming the Gale crater for 12 years now, a huge basin over 150 kilometers in diameter. Its cameras have long gotten used to dust, rocks, and the endless horizon, but recently, strange structures appeared in the images. Rows of small ridges stretching in one direction, like frozen waves. Scientists debated if these were signs of wind, precipitation, or tectonics, but comparing the data to Earth's sedimentary models ended all doubts. These ribbed patterns were made by water, actual waves previously unknown that lapped on a standing lake surface. An ocean isn't needed for their formation. A depth of 1 or 2 meters and a moderate wind are enough. Mars's atmosphere then could have allowed water to ripple and leave marks in sand that lasted billions of years after drying. This discovery may seem minor, just a few square meters of terrain, but it changes a lot. Previously, it was thought ancient Martian water bodies might have been concealed beneath ice, similar to Antarctica. We now know that Mars had at least one location with open water where waves reflected sunlight. Curiosity keeps climbing Mount Sharp, with each sediment layer revealing a new page of the planet's chronicle. The wave layer may be the final record of Mars's active period. We revived ancient creatures in northern Alaska, where permafrost preserves Earth's ancient scent. A group of researchers from the University of Colorado drilled a tunnel through the ice to obtain samples that are 40,000 years old. And what they found looks like a scene from a science fiction movie that suddenly became a documentary. Microorganisms in the samples took months to wake up. They didn't revive instantly. At first, the scientists thought the colonies were simply inert, but after some time they began to reproduce. Under the microscope, threads and clumps formed a stable community. The microbes waited for a signal to resume breathing. Ancient life forms released carbon dioxide, and some released methane. This process is invisible, but it is exactly what can change the climate. Gases that have accumulated under the ice for millions of years are beginning to escape, and at the same time, things that have been dormant in the frozen layers for thousands of years are coming out as well. In 2022, A virus nearly 50,000 years old was already awakened in Siberia. It's safe for humans, but this shows ancient pathogens haven't vanished, just waiting for the warming. Similar cases are now reported in Canada, Greenland, and Alaska. Scientists say there's no threat for now, but seeing ancient bacteria moving in test tubes is still unsettling. We're interfering with the planet's archive more and more often, without fully understanding what we're bringing out of it. And maybe one day, the ice will respond not with cold, but with something alive. What remembers the Earth from before humans appeared on it? Mars was sold at an auction at Sotheby's in London. A small rock weighing 24.5 kg was brought into the hall, but this is not just a stone. This is a fragment of Mars, listed in the catalog as Northwest Africa, 16,788, the largest of all known Martian meteorites found on Earth. It sold for $5.3 million, and as usual, the buyer's name was not disclosed. This discovery began in 2023 in the Sahara Desert, Niger, when local prospectors spotted a brownish-red boulder with a melted crust among the sand. This is how the surface forms entering the atmosphere. A space rock's exterior burns and melts while the inside stays cold. This shade is Martian, and the chemistry of its surface completely matches the samples that were once brought to Earth by the Viking probes. When the meteorite was cut open, it contained olivine crystals, a porphyritic inclusion, and tiny gas bubbles identical to those recorded in the atmosphere of Mars. It is hundreds of millions of years old. Once this piece was blasted off the planet's surface by an asteroid impact and wandered through space until it fell to Earth. Now it belongs to a private collector. It might be displayed in a museum, or maybe it will be locked away in a safe. It's surprising, but true. Someone has a piece of another planet on their shelf. It's direct evidence that Mars had already been sending us its messages long before we learned to send ours to it. Each meteorite isn't just a rock, it's a courier that traveled millions of kilometers, reminding us Earth's connection with Mars began with celestial impacts, not rockets. Space smuggling. Each era has secret desires, even for those traveling beyond Earth. Space is a place where everything is calculated down to the gram. But it is there that one is reminded they're not just on a mission, but a living being needing a sense of home. Spring of 1965, Mission Gemini 3. Astronauts Gus Grissom and John Young are testing the new capsule for the first time. Everything goes as planned until Young pulls a real corned beef sandwich from his pocket, fresh from the cafe near the spaceport. Grissom laughs and takes a bite. Then chaos erupts. Meat and breadcrumbs fly, float, and stick to instruments in zero gravity, even the smallest bits. A hazardous projectile that disrupts electronics causes the sandwich's immediate removal, yet a scandal still breaks out on Earth. The story reaches Congress as the first space smuggling case, but while Americans risked it as a joke, Soviet cosmonauts made it a tradition. Flasks of cognac, jars of pickles, sandwiches, and toast sets hidden in fake journals secretly appeared on board. Engineers, doctors, and technicians knew, but stayed silent. After tough spacewalks, when you were exhausted and shaking, a sip of something familiar would restore your balance. When you look at archival footage, you realize this habit isn't about breaking discipline, it's about humanity. In a sterile, dangerous place where all seems fine, someone seeks a reminder of life. A small jar of pickles in zero gravity says more about us than any speeches about progress. We can conquer planets, but we still never stray far from our kitchen. A dark mass 10 billion light years away, almost beyond the limits of imagination. That's where astronomers notice something that doesn't emit light, rotate, or interact with matter, except through gravity. The lightest known dark object has a mass 1,000,000 times greater than the Sun. But in the cosmos, that's just a speck of dust. Scientists are certain it's not a star or a black hole. Most likely it's a clump of dark matter. It can't be seen directly, but its gravity distorts the light of distant. Clump. To estimate the amount of hidden mass in space, that's exactly how it was found, by the slight bending of rays passing by. If correct, these calculations confirm that dark matter isn't solid, but made of dense clouds filling galaxies, including ours. They're invisible, yet their shadows shape the universe's pattern. The paradox is that smaller objects reveal more about the cosmos' structure. This clump, like the fingerprint of an unknown creator, is too precise to be a coincidence. Dimatorzok, a medieval helmet on Mars. On August 5, the Perseverance rover photographed a strange rock that looked like an old helmet, half buried in the sand. The top is sharp, sidelines converge smoothly, and the surface has many small spheres. Scientists called the find horned fly and noted they had never seen this texture on Mars before. Spherules are tiny mineral balls formed by weathering, deposition, or water, yet there are so many on the horned fly. Scientists say this can't be explained by normal erosion. For millions of years, mineral-rich groundwater may have flowed through rocks, leaving traces, or hot gases could have etched the surface and left scorched bubbles. The Mars rover's instruments have found similar structures before, but never this many on Earth. Such formations are typical for areas with active hydrothermal activity, places where underground water meets heat. If this analogy is correct, it suggests there was not just moisture in Jezero crater, but also a circulation like that near underwater volcanoes that supports life. Perseverance is currently on the crater's northern edge, climbing sedimentary layers, like an archaeologist exploring ancient city levels. And with every meter higher, it becomes more and more obvious. This helmet isn't randomly shaped. It's a reminder the planet wasn't always a dead desert. New video about Roswell. Almost 80 years have passed since strange debris was found on a ranch in New Mexico. But the story of Roswell has come alive again. A 22-minute video suddenly appeared in the United States National Archives with no commentary, no annotations, and a simple title, The Roswell Incident. The footage shows a gray field, scattered metal fragments, a crater-like impact hole, all filmed on old film. Users compared the landscape to 1947 eyewitness descriptions and found the similarities eerily accurate. Someone noticed a vague silhouette in the right corner, resembling a body. Experts quickly downplayed the interest, saying the archive is just storage, not evidence. The video likely concerns Mogul program documents when the United States launched balloons to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. The official version is a weather balloon, the wreckage of which was mistaken for a flying saucer. But for unidentified flying object fans, the appearance of this video is an event. The National Archives isn't an anonymous forum. Random fakes aren't uploaded there. Why the video appeared there only now is a question no one answers. And maybe that's the whole point of the Roswell story. Although the mystery was solved long ago, each new fragment revives the sense that metal, not from Earth, still lies hidden beneath the past's dust. If this is true, Earth's history is far more complex, as unidentified flying object traces point to both the sky and underground. And that's good news, which means we'll keep digging further. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye.